we chose for our presentation is, are feedlots the most effective or moral way to raise cattle? To summarize our findings from our popular press articles, we found that the popular consensus is that feedlots tend to outperform both grass-finished and pasture-raised farm systems on things like land use, water use, and greenhouse gas emissions per pound of beef produced. However, feedlots also tend to have higher manure pollution concentrations, and they also raise more concerns for the animal welfare. We also found that, contrary to popular opinion, grass-fed beef does not produce less greenhouse gases than grain-fed beef. When comparing stress conditions, feedlots tend to be more stressful for cattle due to their living situations. This means that the chances of the cattle developing a weaker immune system and the spread of disease is much larger. Another thing we found in these articles was concerns about the ethical implications of feedlots. When cattle are raised in feedlots, oftentimes they are only there for a few months to gain weight quickly before they are sent to slaughter. One example of this was a study done into Tyson's beef production process that they self-proclaimed as being climate friendly, whereas the findings showed that these claims may not actually be true. In the food sector, beef is by far the biggest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions and therefore climate change, since it is very resource and land intensive. Through the peer-reviewed articles we read, a common theme we noticed was that while raising intensity of livestock production has the effect of also raising production and efficiency, share downsides of ethical implications about animal welfare and the environmental impacts that follow it. Productivity and greenhouse gas emissions are heavily driven by feed efficiency, as shown by global livestock analyses, with differences depending on the region, system of production, and type of product being produced. There is also economic evidence that cattle health and performance results turn into eventual cost and return ratios, which is a reason why feedlots are still a popular choice in the commercial beef industry. Other welfare-focused studies determined that feedlots can cause heat load, disease, and stress for the animals, and the levels of these risks are very dependent on what the management and mitigation practices are like. Whereas many measure success as minimizing costs and maximizing profits as much as possible, this tends to raise many ethical concerns and critiques by others. In summary, our group found that feedlots are the most common method for beef production, since they are efficient in land use, water use, and emissions per pound of beef. Through our research into popular press and peer-reviewed articles, we also found that feedlots tend to raise high amounts of concern for animal welfare, things like increased risk for disease and stress. We concluded that while feedlots may have greater economic benefits, the moral and ethical concerns that they bring cannot be ignored. In conclusion, feedlots are a very efficient way to produce beef when discussing time and money, but they also have problems when it comes to the welfare of the animals and the environmental implications. Our group agrees that feedlots are effective, but this doesn't mean that they are the most moral or ethical option. It is important to find a balance between efficiency and the treatment of animals. Instead of choosing one side of the argument, we believe the focus should be on improving the conditions of feedlots and using more responsible practices. In the end, success shouldn't be defined solely by profit, but also about what is doing right for the animals involved in the process. Thank you for watching.